Thank you so much. I'm Brent from Time on the Hill. And before we get started on today's topic, I just wanted to thank and give a little praise to 4 people who recently had some pretty spectacular success. Congratulations to Eduardo, who's now in the U.S. Senate, who did a phenomenal search and definitely worked his plan. Elizabeth, who's now an admin director in the House of Representatives, she had wanted to work on Capitol Hill for 5 years, and she put her mind to it and got serious about the search, and she started very recently. Congrats to her. Congratulations to Kevin, who's an NCAA soccer player who just accepted an opportunity downtown. And then last but not least, congratulations to Kristen, who accepted the opportunity to go to Harvard Law School. And so 4 candidates who put a plan together, executed their plan of action, and they're doing big things. And so with that in mind, let's think about candidates who are not yet in DC, who are all over the United States, who would love to come to Washington, DC, and let's talk about your plan of action if you would like to be in the House or in the Senate or work for an entity downtown here in Washington, DC. I'm going to use a candidate who is in Seattle, Washington. He is in the world of finance. He would love to work on Capitol Hill. He is a trade and financial analyst mind. He is extremely personable, and I think that his biggest hurdle is nothing more than geography. So I will put together a plan for him or for you if you're currently not in Washington, D.C. There are probably 100 to 200 little tips, so there's no way we can cover it all, but I would love to put together some of the broad strokes if you'd love to work on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., but you don't currently physically live here. First and foremost, I would love for you to consider your geographic ties. So I grew up in Pennsylvania, I went to school in Virginia, I worked in Texas, I worked in New York. Think about members that make sense from those areas. Next, if he's in Seattle, Washington, he is not going to get a job on Capitol Hill without interviewing or meeting a chief of staff, a member, or the member's staff in person, which means he's going to be flying from Washington to DC at least one time. If that is something that you're not necessarily prepared to do, please consider working in the district office. This has an extraordinary amount of value. Number one, if you don't love working for a member in the district office, you're probably not going to love working for a member in Washington, D.C. 80% of the work back home is casework and 20% is policy, whereas in Washington it's 20% casework and 80% policy. I know that most people would prefer to be in Washington than be in the district. Having said that, this is a phenomenal place to start, especially in this candidate's case. He is coming from the world of finance, but he's done some work at the grassroots local level. So he has a taste of politics. He knows he loves public service, but he is a finance guy. Well, if he starts working in the district, he can start going from finance to casework to Congress. So if the thought of moving and if the thought of flying here is a bit of a challenge, consider working in a district office. Next, if you're still dead set on Washington, D.C., think about a Washington, D.C. address. If a chief of staff or hiring manager in the Congress is going through 100 resumes and they see that your address is in Seattle or Hawaii or Texas, the likelihood of them reviewing you as a candidate drops significantly. So see if you can use the address of a friend wherever you stay, where you come, whenever you come to work in Washington, D.C. If someone sees in the letterhead of your resume Northwest DC, they are far more likely to continue scanning the resume than if they find out that you live in another part of the United States. Next is your college outreach plan. So, let's say that you went to the University of Oregon, the Ducks. You live in Oregon, you're not going to be able to fly to DC a lot, but you want to learn as much as you can, and if you get an opportunity, you will come to Washington, D.C. consider emailing everybody from the University of Oregon family. You can get on the phone with them. You could meet in the district office with them. You will, at some point or another, need to visit Washington, D.C. And during this visit, you can work in advance to set up meetings with your university family. You can set up informal meetings with the legislative directors and chiefs of staff in the Geographic Ties that we mentioned. And if you did some outreach, whether you were an intern or an employee, or you just said, I live in the district, I'm going to Washington, it would be a tremendous opportunity to talk with somebody in the Washington, D.C. office. You can try to get as many informal coffees as humanly possible. We have helped people from as far away as Hawaii. There was a superstar in the U.S. Air Force. He was interested in working here in Washington. He was living in Hawaii, and he ended up working for a senator from the state of New York. So if he can navigate the process and get a job in the Senate in Washington from Hawaii, you can do it from anywhere else in the country as well. Think about your geographic ties. Think about serving or at least reaching out to staff in your district. Utilize the DC address of a friend so that you get more attention from offices. Don't forget to reach out to the folks that are here in Washington, D.C. from your university. And last but not least, have a plan in place so that when you come to Washington, D.C., you can visit with the right people. I hope that this was helpful. If you would like some additional information, if you would like access to a university alumni directory of nearly 400 colleges and universities, please visit timeonthehill.com. We love comments, questions, and suggestions. So if there's a topic that you would love to discuss, please let us know. Thanks so much.